The world is voting conservative, and I haven't posted in over a month. Hey everyone, my name is Chana and welcome to my Ishika. Welcome to Vuja Day, something familiar with a fresh perspective. Today we'll be talking about politics, but before I get into that, I want to thank you guys so much for all the subscribers, like all the views, everything. We are, at the time of recording this, we are at 910 subscribers. That is insane. I am not even joking. Like, thank you guys so much. I'm so grateful. I'm glad that you guys are actually active on my YouTube as well, because I've been getting texts going like, why haven't you uploaded recently? What's up? Like, I'm so happy that you guys are actually paying attention and like watch my videos. So grateful, honestly. Thank you for that. I do read the comment section, and for like a 1K special, do put your ideas in the comments. I want to do something different to like my usual like sit down video. It'd be great if you could. I'd love to read your comments. Let's get right to it. So whether we like it or not, politics governs our lives. And as a teenager, I thought I knew it all. So I went to my dad with all my knowledge of politics and challenged him to a conversation. That didn't go as expected, so I sat down to research as much as I could. And here is basically what I found to be like the basis of what you need to know. Politics. We'll be talking about the leaders and opposition of the top 10 biggest countries. We will be talking about their respective ideologies, what those ideologies mean, and certain geopolitical disputes that everyone should basically know about. I won't be able to talk about every single geopolitical dispute there has been to date, but I'll try and cover as much as I can. So if you're a history, politics student, if you live on this planet, this video is for you. Since we can't talk about every single country in the world, we'll have to find a way to narrow our country choices down. So let's look at the top 15 countries, let's say, in terms of size, landmass. So with that, we get Russia, Canada, US, China, Brazil, Australia, India, Argentina, Kazakhstan, Algeria, Democratic Republic of Congo, Greenland including Denmark, or Denmark including Greenland, and Saudi, Mexico, and Indonesia. Evidently, this isn't the best method of trying to figure out who has political power on this earth, because the only power Greenland has is over a bunch of penguins. So let's cross this with fiscal strength. After all that, we get a list of US, China, India, UK, Brazil, Canada, Russia, Australia, Mexico, and Indonesia. So this seems to be a better representation of who has more power on this planet. So let's look at the leaders and oppositions. So for the US, we have Trump versus Biden, and this is a right-leaning country. China, we have Xi Jinping and, well, others, left-leaning country. India, we have Modi versus Gandhi, which is a right-leaning country. UK, we have Boris Johnson versus Keir Starmer, which is a right-leaning country. Brazil, we have Jair Bolsonaro versus De Silva, which is right-leaning. Canada, we have Trudeau versus Erin O'Toole, left-leaning but centrist. Centrist, but most would say left-leaning. Russia, we have Putin versus Navalny. Russia is complicated because Putin describes the ideology that Russia follows as Putin ideology, but it seems to be that Russia is leaning center-right. Australia is Scott Morrison versus Anthony Albanese, and this is center-right. Mexico, we have Lopez Obrador versus Ricardo Anaya, which is center-left. Indonesia, we have Joko Widodo versus Prabowo Subianto. Indonesia is hard because Joko Widodo is known to be a man of contradictions. He doesn't stick to one side, and next thing you know, he's gonna say that he's a conservative socialist. That's what he is. Now, it's all well and good talking about right versus left and the different how each country leans. However, what do those words mean? What does it mean to be right wing? What does it mean to be left wing? Right wing, as seen on the table here, this is called a political compass. So right wingers are generally more Republican and conservative, whereas left-wingers are generally more democratic and progressive. There are obviously a lot of ways you can label yourself. You can be an anarchist, socialist, there's quite a few. So when it comes to right-wingers, They prefer closed borders and they're nationalists, so they mean that what that means is they're a nation before the world. They require more military funding, less government interference in terms of business regulation, stricter law enforcement. Legal systems should punish lawbreakers, and said lawbreakers should be criticized. The economy should be left in the hands of private businesses for it to boom. More power to the police during protests, especially if they turn violent. Against added benefits to minorities, and they believe that everyone should be given an equal chance. And they are generally more traditional and religious throughout the world. Left-wingers, on the other hand, believe that there should be open borders, there should be a reduced military spending. They're internationalists. They support change to improve welfare specifically for minorities. Government should play a larger role in people's lives through social benefits and security. And they plan on paying for this by taxing the rich more, i.e. a progressive tax system. Law and order are important, but to protect rights. Less power to the police during large public gatherings. Power to the people and more open protest. And the legal system should be less strict, i.e. do not arrest, rehabilitate. People are voting conservative, it seems to be because they prefer closed borders, they prefer country over the world, they prefer the fact that we should have an economic mindset, they prefer the fact that we need to take care of ourselves before we take care of others. Okay, so let's move on to the rest of the world. Let's start with the UK. Easiest thing to start off with. So what people, like the two islands that people think are the UK, consist of two independent countries. So there's the United Kingdom of Great Britain, and then there's the Republic of Ireland. Now the island of Ireland is mostly the Republic of Ireland, whereas, however, there's a small part on the top called Northern Ireland, which is one of the four constituents of the United Kingdom of Great Britain. Now, North Ireland doesn't have an official flag yet because their population haven't decided whether they want to be a part of the rest of Ireland. However, there's a sizable population that does want to exit UK and doesn't want to be a part of the UK anymore, although there was an unsuccessful referendum recently. Also, there's Jersey, Guernsey, and the Isle of Man. These are called crown dependencies. This is because they're not part of the UK, but they are still British. Let's move on to Spain. In Spain, there's a region called Catalonia, which has been fighting for independence from Spain. They asked Madrid permission to hold a referendum, and Madrid said no. They said we'll do it anyway. Evidently that's illegal, but they did it anyway. This doesn't count, not only because it was illegal, but majority of the people who wanted to stay with Spain just boycotted the vote. Catalonia's leader actually did come out and say that now Catalonia was independent. Sort of. Nobody really knows what happened during his speech, and it's still not internationally recognized, and to the world, Catalonia is still a part of Spain. The leader is now in self-imposed exile in Belgium. Okay, now let's talk about the European Union, i.e. Europe in general. So the European Union is a political and economic union that spans 27 of European states. Used to be 28, but Brexit. Also, the reason why Northern Ireland wants to gain independence from the UK. There are two things you have to know about when it comes to the EU. So there's a Eurozone and there is the Schengen area. So let's talk about the Schengen area. That's an area of free travel across the participating countries. Not all states that are in the EU are participating in the Schengen area, and and some that are not in the EU are. So the Schengen area allows free travel and open borders. The second you need to know is the Eurozone. The Eurozone is basically a shared currency between the participating states. So again, not all countries in the EU are participating in the Eurozone, and some countries that are not in the EU are. Now let's move on to the Balkans. An area of interest here is the partially recognized self-declared independent state of Kosovo, the autonomous Serbian province of Kosovo, depending on your beliefs. Kosovo declared independence in 2008 after a war with Serbia using the help of NATO. Other than this, there's a 3-decade-long naming dispute between Greece and what is now called North Macedonia. Okay, now on to Russian area. Let's talk about Crimea. Wow, that is so politically incorrect. So it was annexed by Russians from Ukraine, and this happened after a referendum of questionable legitimacy, and therefore Crimea is still recognized as part of Ukraine. Now, still on to Northeast Asia. Another part that you should know about is the Kaliningrad Oblast. This used to be part of the German state of Persia, but the Russians claimed it after the Allies won against Germany, and therefore it's kind of like now isolated from the rest of Russia, but it's still part of Russia. It's part of Russia, just deal with it. Now on to Cyprus. It's a beautiful place for a summer getaway, but the political situation isn't ideal. So it's divided into the Republic of Cyprus and the unrecognized Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus. In the middle, there's a UN buffer zone which prohibits military vehicles or personnel. So not ideal, but a great place to spend your summer if you want to. Okay, now let's move on to Africa. I'm trying my best to cover as many continents as possible. Australia, nothing much goes on down there, so we can just skip over that. Okay, so when it comes to Africa, an area of interest is Western Sahara, as it's controlled by Morocco. The country is also recognized as the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic. Okay, now on to the Horn of Africa. Somaliland. Okay, so the British had taken over Somaliland, the Italians had taken over what's now parts of Somalia, and they tried to form like a one independent country, but then in the 1960s, but then that didn't work out, and Somaliland gained independence, but civil war still goes on. Okay, now let's move on to the Middle East. This is going to be heavily generalized. It's very hard to talk about every single thing in a lot of detail in a couple of minutes. I'll try my best, but still, I'm sorry, like, it's heavily generalized. Okay, so Palestine. The UN decided that they should split up into two different residencies, so Arab and Jewish residencies. So Israel and Palestine. That has formed, there's so much conflict there because Palestine claims parts of Israel. Israel wants to expand. Then there's a devastating situation in Syria. There's a multi-sided civil war that's been going on for decades now, and I believe it started off through anti-government protests, which was part of a bigger movement called the Arab Spring. Now let's move east of the Middle East, and now we're here in India. So now we're here for the disputed region of Jammu and Kashmir. Jammu and Kashmir used to be a princely state of India before the divide, and then as every country, Jammu and Kashmir was given the option whether to stay in India or to go to the new state of Pakistan. However, both countries fought over this region, and there's rough border between in Kashmir to separate the land between Pakistan and India. Okay, so now on to Tibet. This is a state that's controlled by the People's Republic of China. The Tibetans are ethnically different to the Han majority that resides in China, however, still controlled by China. However, but after the fall of the Qing dynasty in the 1900s, they experienced a couple of years of de facto independence. Okay, so about China itself. Okay, so there was like a whole part when China was actually Republic of China, but there was a war between the communists and the government at the time, and the communists won, so the government of the Republic of China moved to what is now Taiwan. China went from the Republic of China to the People's Republic of China. And when the People's Republic of China government took power, the communist government took power, they annexed Tibet. Now Tibet's free. So moving on, Hong Kong. Hong Kong is not too complicated. It's part of China, but not at the same time. So basically, there are some rules that China cannot impose their economic system onto Hong Kong, and it's part of the One China, Two Systems. Yeah, so Hong Kong is technically part of China, but is not influenced by their economic systems or anything as such. However, there have been major protests to make sure to have Hong Kong as completely independent. Hong Kong used to be British, but after the British left, it was transferred back to China under a 50-year agreement. However, nobody knows really what's going to happen after those 50 years. Does Hong Kong gain complete independence? Nobody really knows. Okay, so Korea. This is a bit complicated. So Korea was annexed by Japan after the fall of Japan after World War II, and so the US controlled the south and the Soviet Union controlled the north. The plan was to get them two together, but since the Soviet Union and the US couldn't get along, there was the Cold War, they started fighting, and now there's a partition, so North Korea versus South Korea. Now they're kind of at a stalemate. They've been at a stalemate for a couple of years now. Now, North Korea is one of the most isolated countries in the world, with the citizens of North Korea not having little to no knowledge about the outside world and unable to get any. However, North Korea does have nuclear weapons, so not many countries are willing to interfere. Quickly onto the Mediterranean, there's so many disputed regions, there's so many countries, half of which nobody knows what's going on with. People are fighting over like different islands. Puerto Rico wants to add the 51st star onto the United States flag. Okay, so now let's move on to Antarctica, our final thing. So, Antarctica, it's pretty chill there, but like since countries can't, since it's land, countries just put their flag on it, because why not? At this point, claim whatever land is there. There's a lot of regions of different lands. Pretty complicated, but it's not relevant because of the Antarctic Treaty, which states that there's no new sovereignties, no new claims to land, area for scientific exploration and research, and no military activity. Hi guys, I hope I didn't bore you with like all this information. This is a lot to take in. Maybe watch the video a couple of times, give me those watch hours, you know. But this is really useful information to know. Thank you for liking, sharing, and watching this video. If you like this video and want to support me, do subscribe. It means a lot to me. Again, thank you so much for the 900 plus subscribers. My videos are here, and if you want to subscribe, you can click on here, and there'll be something else here, probably a playlist. You can binge my videos if you want. Thank you guys so much. I hope to see you next time. Stay safe, stay happy. And this is Vuja Day signing off.